Welcome to Wet and Worthy Woman. Not just a podcast, but a global revolution. A movement of women taking back the burned, silenced, suppressed, shamed, and forbidden parts of our feminine truth. You're here to heal the rebel woman way and take back all that you've been told not to be as a woman. Join me, Charlotte Little, founder of The Wild Femme, trauma survivor and liberation leader, to reclaim your ancient feminine codes from society, shame, and suppression as we have these juicy, rebellious conversations to set your soul free. Prepare to fuck yourself back to freedom, and welcome to the Wet and Worthy Woman Revolution. Hello, beautiful community tribe. Welcome to this epic, controversial, system-shaking new flavor of conversation in the feminine space, I feel. I'm here with Gina, the founder of Rebel Rose Temple, and I'm going to introduce her with this divine piece of writing that I have here in front of me. Gina Francis is a faith-based feminine embodiment guide, priestess of the Rose lineage, and teacher of womb mysteries. She guides visionary, ambitious women into deeper intimacy with their womb, reverence for their cyclical rhythms, and bone-deep embrace of their God-given feminine design. After 8 years on hormonal birth control and a 13-month journey to restore her natural cycle, Gina was initiated into the sacred work she now shares, walking women home to the truth, beauty, and power of their womb and womanhood. Known as the Visionary's doula, delicious, she weaves grounded action and accountability with softness, helping women anchor their mission through the wisdom of their body, led by God and the holy intelligence of the womb. Oh, goddess. Oh, my goddess. I am so grateful to have you on, woman. Is there anything you want to add to that deliciousness?
So beautiful to just receive like that reflection back to me as well, because it's one thing to write it and to read it, but to just hear it read back to me. I honestly don't think I have anything to add. I feel like that just nailed all the pieces.
I love that. That's why I'm like, no, I'm going to introduce everyone on the podcast, because every single woman has just received this like divine mirror of everything they bring to the world. And it's just like putting a little crown on your head at the beginning of the episode. So I'm glad you're feeling it. You're feeling the crown. So there's a particular reason why I wanted you on, Gina, because there's a part of your message which has been landing so deeply within me, and I feel like it's the conversation I'm having with myself every day. And when you spoke about it and I found you, I was thinking, thank you, someone is talking about this online. And mainly today we're going to go into this kind of controversial, if you like, opinion that you don't need more. You don't need more self-development, more growth, more fixing, more healing. You don't need more practices, rituals, tools, teachings. You're really bringing and guiding us into a place of simplicity where we actually need less. And I love the term you used. I'm inside your Telegram community, where, please everyone get inside that, Gina's sharing like potent mini podcast droplets inside a Telegram group, and they are so fire. And recently you shared one about, that when we're on this conscious spiritual pathway, we're not often leaving space for integration. There's no integration. And you referred to it as us becoming spiritually constipated. And I just adore this, because I feel like I hit that at some point fairly recently. I just moved to another country. I just moved 3,000 miles. It's been 2 months today, to the day that I arrived here. But I definitely arrived here with a feeling of, I don't want to work on myself. I need a freaking break. But of course, all my wounds were coming up because I was in a new place. I just moved in with my man. We've been long distance for a year and a half. So everything was coming to the surface. Um, but I knew that it wasn't about more learning, it was about actually practicing and embodying what I already know and just putting it into practice over and over again, specifically for me around the abandonment wound. So I really want to talk to that today, but maybe you can come into the space first, just telling us about your journey, how you arrived here into this feminine space, into woman's work, into the service that you're so beautifully bringing to the world today.
Mm. Thank you so much, Charlotte, for all those pieces that you shared. And I also just really want to like reflect and really appreciate your radical honesty and authenticity and just this like fire that I feel like you bring. And it's so beautiful. It's like life-giving to this space. So I'm so grateful to be here and so happy to be here and with all of you listening right now. Hi. Um, yeah, so wow, what a wild and a roller coaster journey this human existence is in the most beautiful of ways. And, like you shared in part of my intro, the big turning point on my journey was coming off of hormonal birth control, which that was a while ago now. That was uh, maybe 10 years ago now, I think. So that was a really big turning point for me where literally it felt like for the first time in my life, it was like this veil of illusion was lifted. And all of a sudden, I could see clearly, like for the first time ever. And, that was a while ago now. And then over the past about 2 years ago or so, I had another very similar experience where it was my Saturn return time. And, I don't really follow astrology very much. I don't really like subscribe to it, but I do believe in the power of the planets and all these energies that do influence everything going on. And I know like similar, your Saturn return journey too, like my Saturn return it was insane. Like it was I was stripped bare. And that's so much of what's informing my work right now, where um gosh, I don't even remember the exact order, but I was living in Australia for a while with my former partner, and I went back to the US. And in that time, that was probably 3 years ago now, from when we're recording this, maybe 2022, my business just started crumbling. Like I was always doing womb work. My work was always very centered around the womb and feminine embodiment, and there was just this point where it all started crumbling. It was like what was working was no longer working. And at the time, I didn't have the understanding of like what was happening. And I wouldn't say that I was in victim to it, because I have a deep, deep belief that everything is always happening for us and that it's all part of the journey. But it was like one thing after another where my business just started dissolving, clients leaving, made bad investment, lost a lot of money. Um, and then ended up going through a really rough patch with my partner. Um, I ended up getting pregnant and having an abortion, which was probably the most significant piece. And I don't know if this is the space to really go into it more at this point. I'm open to, like share that that was a part of the journey, but I don't want to go into like more of the details, but just that was that was another one of those like the veil of illusion was lifted and I was just a completely different woman after. And I don't want to say that it broke me, but it cracked me open in ways I didn't even think possible. And so, just the immense grief, like I couldn't do anything, I couldn't even really be in my business. There was such grief, there was like depression, anxiety, there was so much. It was such a very dark time. And, I was still doing a bit of clients here and there, but at that time I really actually surrendered to my man's provision for the most part, which was such a gift and so beautiful. And at the same time, it was really hard. That was my first, kind of practice into really being provided for in that way in relationship financially. And our relationship was really rocky, not because of the abortion, but it just already was. And soon after that, my Instagram account got taken down. So I had another, this Instagram account, Rebel Rose Temple, was not my one previously that I built my business on. That got taken down for quote unquote sexual solicitation, which I think we all know the story here in this space. And I'm sure, you know, maybe you've dealt with your fair share of censoring and all of the things. And it was just, again, it was this moment where, and I'll just share this quickly because I think it's such a funny, interesting aha moment of the story is like literally that day that my Instagram account got taken down, I was out by the lake and I was just having one of those breakdowns where you walk and you cry and you talk to the trees and you talk to God and you talk to the flowers and the butterflies. And I was just sobbing and I laid on the earth and just let the earth hold me. And I just prayed for anything that is taking up space in my life that's kind of distracting me from where I'm meant to be. I just was like, take it. Like anything that needs to go, go. And literally I went home that day and had the email that my Instagram account was, I don't know if it said disabled, deactivated, like whatever their language was, that day, that same day. And so that was like its whole own initiation and just deep thing itself. And what was fascinating was like, you know, my first response was actually relief. I was almost relieved to let it go. And that to me was really telling. You know, for me, I always really believe that like when we have that sense of peace about something, that's when we know. That's when we really know it's true and it's for us. And that was kind of what I felt. It was like this peace. And yeah, you know, I went through a bit of a process like, oh, okay, wow, I just built my whole business here and now it's gone. But that was like nothing compared to the peace that I felt. And so that was just, I was just stripped bare of that. And about a month after that, I was deported from Australia. So I'd been living in Australia. I know I also haven't really talked about this much publicly, so this is fun. I'm happy to talk about it. But yeah, I was deported from Australia very unexpectedly, separated from my partner, very traumatic experience. And I was sent back to Bali, which is now home. And Bali was home before that as well for a period of time. But yeah, very unexpectedly with just my suitcase and that's it. I was sent back here to Bali and, you know, then me and my partner ended up breaking up and yeah, it was just like one thing after another. And through all of that is really where I came back into a relationship with God. And personally, for me, I relate to God through Christ. And the more like I would say, you know, it's a very deep exploration for me and it's new every day. And I'm like learning every day and just in this, you know, this process of like that childlike innocence of exploration. And I guess I would say for me, it's more of like a feminine mystic path with Christ and with God. It's not dogmatic and it's not religion. It's not religion at all. And yeah, really, it was all these experiences that really brought me to my knees and brought me home to God and my womb. It was like when everything was gone, literally all I had was my body, myself, my womb, the deepest relationship I've had with my womb, you know, and God. And it was like, okay, what if you actually don't need all of that stuff, you know? And yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's so many different threads we can pull on, but maybe I'll just pause there for a moment.
Mm. Oh, thank you so much for going into these dark, painful moments of your history and bringing them here so authentically. Thank you. And it just makes me feel how embodied your work is because you're literally holding an offering, about to hold an offering called Stripped Bare, and how you know that reality, you know, of just being stripped and asking for the stripping, like bravely asking for the stripping, like, okay, take it all away. And I think that's a sentence we throw around in like new age, kind of new earth collective vibes. It's like, oh, I let go of all that's not in alignment. But like, really, if you're really gonna let it go, you have no idea what's about to drop out of your life, and it can be painful and it can be identity shaking. And I certainly feel that a season of that right now for me moving to a new country is like a stripped bare. It's like a realization of all the external things that I had at home in the UK, which were making me feel like a sense of identity. All of those things are gone, and it's returning me back to the deep core truth of my identity beyond friends, successful, thriving business, nonstop clients, beyond all those things that I had kind of running and flowing in the UK. It's stripped me bare, and it brings up so much, but also brings us into the truest self-worth and self-connection piece that we can only get when we allow ourselves to be stripped bare of the external things that make us feel like a woman, or like Gina, or like Charlotte. And I'm just, yeah, I'm in awe of you for traversing that. And I mean, I never saw your business before, but I see it now, and I'm pretty sure it upgraded.
Babe, thank you for that reflection because it 100% upgraded. And it was just, Rebel Rose Temple she had existed. Like I had run an offering that was called Rebel Rose, and it was like a deep immersion for women. And that was part of this process was literally I heard her. When I say her, I mean Rebel Rose. And maybe you relate this way. Like my business is an entity, right? I really believe like our creations, they have a life of their own. They have desires of their own. They have ways they want to express in the world. And I could just feel her being like, make more space for me, like pay attention to me. And so it's kind of like this identity of my like personal brand, I guess you could call it, that I had built. It was getting in the way of like the truth of what wanted to come through with Rebel Rose Temple and all of these deeper initiations like into my womanhood and into this stripping bare and really discovering, okay, like who am I with like there was just a point in that journey too where like a lot of these practices that I used to do just like I didn't want to do them anymore. Like they didn't feel good. They weren't doing anything for me. It all just started to feel like stuff. And it started to feel like the hamster wheel, like you were saying before, of like the constant personal development. And like when I had this veil of illusion lifted, I was like, I don't actually want to develop myself. Like I don't want to be so focused on myself and what I need and what I want and like these egoic desires. And there's that difference between like kind of like our ego, like cute desires and like our true heart desires that are like truth and guiding lights, right? And it was just like through all of that and through the simplicity that that brought me to, that was like the deepest peace I ever felt in my life. And that's really where this business was birthed. And that's really where my deeper, I would say like more grounded relationship with the feminine and with feminine embodiment and with spirituality. Like I can go super woo woo, like we can go all the places, you know what I mean? But for me, I've always been much more of like I want to be human, right? Like we are here incarnated as women in these earthly suits, these skin suits, like our souls chose to be here in this world right now, right? With our blood and our bones and our wombs and our tissues and our pussies and all of these desires in us and like this juicy, delicious life that like I want to be here and I want to inhabit that. I don't want to constantly be like seeking and striving for like the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and like ascending and blah blah blah, like all of these things that just become exhausting, honestly. Like I just want to like read a fantasy novel and drink tea and like be a woman and like serve my clients and make art. You know what I mean? Like I think there's like a point that we come to and it's like, and, all of this to say, and maybe we'll go into this too, is like this isn't saying that any of that stuff's wrong or that like I do my embodiment practices every day, like I was just at a feminine movement class before this and like I'm so in my body every day. So it's not about like it's not that any of these things are wrong or that we need to stop doing all of them, but it's so much more about like why? Like why are you showing up? every day for these things? Are they truly serving you now in this season? Or like, do your practices and rituals need to change? Do they need to be reoriented? Do you actually need to do less and just like go for a walk in the morning instead of having like 500 different things that actually are kind of stressful, you know?
Yeah, you know how many women I speak to that refer to it as the self-care admin. It's
Yeah,
like, okay,
yeah, wow,
have I done
really.
my journaling? Have I meditated? And it's this feeling of, and I have so been there. I have so been there really recently. Like, I felt as if I don't get my anxious attachment slash abandonment wound from my absent father under wraps before I move in with my husband, who I now like married and lived with all in the last 3 months. And I was thinking, if I don't get this under control, and if I don't meditate with all these different parts of my inner child every day and talk to her and make sure she feels safe with me, then I'm going to implode my relationship and everything's going to fall apart. And it's this feeling of like, we externalize our sense of regulation and okayness on the practices. And so many women I know think, myself included, who I'm just coming out of this like complete illusion in the last few months. But I felt like if I didn't do those things in the morning, if I didn't do a workout and a meditation and a breath work and the things, then I would lose control, go insane, and ruin my whole life. And I'd like be a ball of rage and I'd explode. And then I realized at some point, what if the micromanagement and the control that I'm gripping over myself is actually what's driving me insane, not the practices? So I'd really love to go into that with you, of this like simplicity piece, because I know a lot of women like myself see your work and they take a big exhale and they're like, oh my goodness, I'm understood. Someone gets it. There's no more pressure from this mentor and this mentor and this mentor to make sure I'm doing this and this. Like, there's actually someone over here saying, just do less, just be woman, just like make your ritual your breakfast. You're like, your breakfast can be your ritual, your shower can be your ritual, your getting dressed in the morning can be your ritual, you're going to the supermarket to do the groceries can be your ritual. What if life was the ceremony and not the actual ceremonies that we go to, you know, even though they're amazing and divine and beautiful, but the life part is the important part. So if we're only feeling okay when we're in the practices, but we're, you know, feeling super unregulated in the rest of our day, then the practices aren't really serving their purpose anymore. So I'd love your piece on that, and what you've noticed with your clients when you give them that permission to let go and simplify. What have you noticed happens within yourself and other women when they kind of let go of that pressure? My loves, I am jumping into your ears to tell you an extremely important announcement, and that is that the first ever Wet and Worthy Woman retreat is happening this year, October 2025, exactly 8 years after the trauma that set me on this pathway of allowing women to feel safe and sacred in their sexual bodies, in their pussies, and in their voice. Exactly 8 years after that man followed me home in India and changed my life forever, I am holding a gathering, an intimate, powerful, juicy as fuck journey for only 9 women to descend into the depths of the forbidden feminine, to take back all they were told not to be, their sexuality, their voice, their expression, to be feral and alive, to be wet and full of pleasure. The Wet and Worthy Woman Retreat is your sacred sexual reclamation where we weave together the divine and the dirty in a juicy 4-day journey to the underworld of the feminine taboo. And we take it all back in a revolutionary method of de-shaming and destroying the chains and the cages and the boxes you've put your own feminine soul into. So we are gathering on Tenerife, the island of the heart chakra here in Spain, for 4 days in a luxury Spanish finca, unlimited access to the sauna. So you know we're going to be in there at midnight, drinking cacao and having a good time and reclaiming it all in the most fun, spicy journey of sisterhood that totally accepts, adores, and celebrates all of the most shamed and silenced parts of our womanhood. Early bird is ending in the next couple of weeks. You only have a few more spots left at over £100 off, so please book now to be with us. You also get lifetime access to the Wet and Worthy Woman journey online and so many other juicy bonuses like one-to-one calls with me. So please, please, please join the sisterhood. I cannot wait to be here with you in paradise under the Spanish sun, next to the pool, drinking cacao every morning and descending into the spiciest healing journey ever. Okay. Link in the show notes or go to thewildfemme.com/retreat and I will see you in Spain, babe.
So many beautiful threads to pull on here, and like I want to just invite everyone listening to just take a deep breath and take an exhale into this too, like just deep breath in, down into your womb, into your belly, into your pussy. Yeah, and just like I want to just like invite everyone to feel what is alive in your body as you're listening to this, and even everything that Charlotte was sharing, because it can, like you were saying, like it's such an exhale, and it can also be confronting because it's confronting all these parts of us that want to control. And I was literally just making some little memes before this too today, and one of them was like, it was something about like your feminine embodiment practice is actually just control dressed up in a pretty outfit. And that's exactly what you really just spoke to. Because again, the, the embodiment practices are beautiful, but if we're only feeling embodied and good or whatever, when we're in them, it's like, what purpose are they really serving? Like life is the real embodiment ground. And um there's yeah, so just like one thing you said too was like, what if the taking a shower was your ritual? What if making breakfast was your ritual? And like, I think that's so much of where I'm not gonna lie, like it's definitely challenging. Like I was a person too, where if I didn't do similar to you, like my Kundalini practice and my meditation and my journaling and make cacao and go to the beach and whatever before a certain time, then like my partner got the shit end of the stick. Like he was like I was like, and or if he interrupted my morning or if something was off, like I would just spiral, and it was it was so bad. Like in hindsight, I'm like, oh my goodness, how did he put up with me? Like it was, it was very, and I love that version of me, but it was very immature. It was very immature feminine. It was just very immature in general. And a beautiful part of my life and my chapter and my learning that we can all reflect on. And, I want to like just encourage everyone listening to like bring a sense of lightheartedness. Like we're poking at this and I'm poking at this because it's real, and like I want to bring light to it, but not in a way of like there's no shaming, there's no condemning, there's no like you're wrong, bad, whatever. Like literally none of that. If there's any of that coming up, just literally throw it out the window and we can just have a little giggle at ourselves. And returning back to your question, can you actually repeat that one more time? You were saying
Yeah.
like about your clients.
Yeah, what do you notice in yourself and the woman you work with when you give that permission to simplify and do less?
A complete reorientation of their lives, like truly in every way, particularly because, I primarily work with entrepreneurs, very ambitious women, go-getters, driven women, women who maybe are just birthing their business or they're excited to, and there starts to become this, it's like a clearing of the noise where their actual true desires get to come online and they get to realize like, oh wait, I thought I actually wanted this. Like for an example, this literally happened the other day. This woman was like, oh, I thought I wanted to build this like fempire and this really big brand and this big business. And I actually realized the other day, like, I I don't want that. Like, I want to serve my women and I want to be in my medicine, but like I want to be provided for and I want my man's business to take off and I want to support him. And like, yes, I still want to work and serve, but like I actually don't want the seven-figure business that I was told that I should want, as just like an example of one of those desires. Even, you know, working with one of my clients now who's married also, and this has come up in her relationship with her husband, where like she thought that she had to do all of these things to be more feminine and like be more attractive to him and like create more polarity. And that actually was getting in the way of their intimacy because she was so in her head about what she was doing, what she was saying, what she was wearing, how she was showing up, how she was in their sex and their intimacy, that she wasn't actually like she was so armored up, because like all of this also like with the control, right? These control pieces also manifest in our body as armor, right? And I'm sure as you know, like our heart and our breasts, like our breasts are an extension of our heart and so much for women, so much of our armor comes up around our heart and around our chest. And so all of these things that we're trying, and this comes from someone like I'm definitely a very controlling person. Like I'll be straight up with you. Like I've got to check myself. Like I like my things how I want them and I want to know and I want to do all the things. But like a lot of that, and there can be beauty to that too. I'm not saying also that that's wrong, but the way that it manifests in the body can actually push us further away from what we're actually desiring, and even just that stripping back to simplicity of like, what if instead of doing, five different things in your morning practice, you just moved your body and you made time to be with your womb and your breath. You meditated, you prayed, you just had a really gentle practice, or you just went to the gym or for a walk. Like we don't need to actually stack all of these different practices. We actually just need to really distill down to what really brings us alive and what really feels, and for us as women too, that's going to change cyclically. So I also see that in the women around me and my clients is like this deeper embodiment of their inner rhythms and of their menstrual cycle starts to come online because they're also not trying to like make it look like other people or like, I was writing about this recently too. Like just because you're ovulating doesn't mean that every month you're going to feel really juicy and magnetic. Like I've had a lot of clients who have a lot of deep like mother line stuff that they're healing. And a lot of times for women around that ovulatory time when we're fertile, when we're releasing an egg, very connected to the mother, if we maybe have issues going on with our mom presently in the past, maybe our mother has passed away, maybe, whatever the situations with our birth mother could be, like that time can actually feel quite tender because maybe we're a lot more disconnected from that like fertile mother archetype. And so it's just like this homecoming of peace that comes online that, none of these practices or like modalities can really give you, right? Because it comes back to truth. It's like a distilling back to like what's true and what's authentic. What's authentic. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, thank you. I really loved the piece you brought about ovulation because I am one of those women. Not
Mm.
necessarily, I mean, my relationship with my mother is amazing. I had a single mum, so
Mm.
we're like really close. It was just me, my mum, and my sister growing up. But I very rarely experience that juiciness with ovulation. I actually experience sometimes very often pain. And then I feel like once my egg is released and not used, I get this deep dip of insecurity around day 17, almost every cycle. Day 17 is not my favorite day. I get this like real deep dip of
Yeah.
insecurity and sadness. And I'm really glad you spoke to that because one of the reasons why I love your controversial work isn't just from telling women, maybe you should do less spiritual practice, but also this invite of this cyclicality. And I want us to go into that a moment now because I saw this post where you said something along the lines of cyclical living might be becoming a limitation, not a liberation. And I really resonate to that when I first got into womb work years ago. When I was on my bleed, me and my best friend that I ended up moving in with, she's the one that introduced me to my now husband. Like we've traversed so much in
Oh,
this life together. But we met in a womb mystery school, in like a long womb mystery
wow.
school. And then yeah, this dear sister of mine, we lived maybe like 15 minutes apart from each other, but our bleed was like back to back. So I would bleed and then she would bleed the week after. And we were in this like mystery school where we learned that, during your inner winter, you take it easy, maybe don't see anyone, don't do anything. So then we'd go 2 weeks of the month where we literally couldn't see each other because I was bleeding and then she was bleeding. And I was done. And soon after it, we rebelled and we were like, no, it's not all about the womb cave. Like maybe we want to be in sisterhood
Mm.
during our bleed. Maybe on day 3 or 4, we're ready to emerge. Maybe on day 7, we're ready to emerge. But that cyclicality is going to forever change. And it's not like every single 27 to 35-day cycle, we're going to be the same woman. We're going to have the same ovulation or the same bleed. So I love that you invite people to look at where the cycle is becoming an excuse and is becoming a limitation. And I'd love your wisdom on that, how a woman can more deeply attune into what's true for her body in the present rather than using a roadmap that's already drawn out for her of how her month should look and feel.
Mm. Yeah. So first, I do really want to speak to the fact that like learning those foundational basics of the menstrual cycle, it's so important. I think it should be non-negotiable, in schools growing up for everyone to learn about it. But having that foundational understanding of, okay, I don't just bleed and like I don't just have a period. There's actually these beautiful 4 inner seasons, and I can work with them, and I can eat differently in each phase, and exercise, and da da da. All the different things. Having that knowledge is so foundational, and I encourage that for all women. I really encourage that for everyone. I just think everyone should know about it. Everyone should know about it. And then there comes a point, just like you said, you spoke to that post where what once felt so freeing, right? Like for me, that felt so freeing. It was like, wow, I can like be these 4 kind of different women every month, and I can tend to myself, and it's this beautiful framework and this beautiful blueprint for me to really blossom. It can actually start really holding you back because it starts to become an excuse. Just like you said, where and also, like, I am all about the rest while you're bleeding. Like, we're literally bleeding. Our energy levels are low physiologically. Like, we need rest during that time. Our energy levels are low. Our hormones are low. Like, there's no arguing that. And this is where I want to invite everyone just to bring in a deeper texture of discernment, which to me, it seems like, that was kind of like what you and your friend did, where and I mean, think about the red tents. Women have gathered since forever, to bleed together, to care for each other together in red tents, right? They left the tribe, they left the community, and we're just in this beautiful bubble and we're cared for and, loved and brought food and had nourishment and all the things. So like when did we make a rule that like we can't see our sisters while we're bleeding, you know? And it's, again, there's a discernment piece. Yeah, the first day of my bleed and even second day of my bleed, I don't want to see anybody. Like, I just want to be home and I want to be cocooned and I want to like have that sacred space. And I think as entrepreneurs, you and I speaking, it's a gift. It's a privilege that I can take off this time when I want to, and I can plan my work and I can plan my business around that. And, I think that should be implemented in all workplaces, not just an entrepreneurial privilege. Women should be granted and menstruating should be granted as like time off and rest or, just different things around that 100%. Um, but even for example, like a couple weeks ago when I was bleeding, I ended up flying. I was on a plane. Like I ended up traveling from Thailand. Like I got my bleed when I was in Thailand. And then day two, I was flying back and I was literally traveling from like 6 a.m. got picked up by my driver until I got home back to my place in Bali at like 8 p.m. So it was like a more than 12-hour travel day. And I'm like going through my period undies on the airplane, like stuffing them in plastic bags, just like, and was that exciting? And did I love that? No. Like I didn't want to be traveling and dealing with all that while I was bleeding. No. Around all these people and all this energy and airports and all of the things. No. But like, was I going to throw a tantrum about it? And was I going to collapse? And was I going to, no, I wasn't going to do that. And, um, also everybody's different. Some people who, if you experience really bad cramping or like really, really heavy bleeds or really uncomfortable bleeds, that's also a different story. So for me, like one of my biggest guiding lights in life and just daily prayers is discernment, and just also trusting that everyone I speak to, trusting that you, Charlotte, trusting that all the listeners, like you're all beautiful, mature beings who have discernment, right? Like speaking to you, like you have that discernment because you do. And I think that's where a lot of these frameworks, instead of just blindly accepting them, like the ovulation example we just had, instead of blindly accepting them as truth or as resonant with you, like blindly just being like, okay, 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 that works for them. Let me try that. That work like that's a whatever. It's like actually running it through your system and discerning, okay, like what's actually most authentic for me? Because there's so much beauty to, yes, like running your business and your life and all of that really in rhythm with your cycle. Like I'm so in support of that. But what I found is that it actually just started to become more noise and like make things almost overcomplicated, where I used to like everything was to a T, like my launches, my start of my programs, end of my like, programs, client calls, like all of that was literally so detailed out to my cycle. And like if my cycle changed, God forbid, then I would probably like in the past, I would just change my whole schedule and I would push the launch back and I would change the master class and I would like make all these changes. And it got to a point where like it actually just got really complicated. Like it just got to be too complex to need it to be so specific. Again, stripping bare, like that was part of the stripping bare to like, what if you could trust in yourself? What if you could trust in yourself, in your body, in your wisdom, in your medicine, in your authenticity? Like, what if you could trust yourself so deeply to show up in every phase of your cycle, regardless of like what's going on? Like, what if you could bring, say, I was bleeding on this podcast and I didn't even check in with where you're at in your cycle. I usually do that. Where are you in your cycle, by the way?
I'm day 29.
Okay. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. You're deep in the luteal.
I'm done with the
You're like,
luteal.
you're like, I'm ready to burst. Please
Yeah.
let me
Yeah.
bleed finally.
Yeah. I voice noted my friend this morning, like, I have womb constipation. Like,
Yeah.
she feels full. She's ready. It's just
Yeah.
not coming yet.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that feeling so well. So well. And it's funny because I'm kind of like pure opposite. Like I literally like just ovulated like yesterday, today, like tons of cervical mucus and um I'm actually feeling this is like I also similarly don't always feel amazing during ovulation. I get a bit of cramping and like that's something I'm working with in my own body personally on my journey. So it can be a really uncomfortable time for me sometimes. But this month it's been like full, juicy, delicious, wet, creative, like yummy, And so I'm like embracing that. And I'm like, okay, that's like the truth of this moment. And I'm probably going to also have that. I call it like a post ovulation energy drop or post ovulation estrogen drop, um, or even summertime sadness is like a cute little term I use for it. Because it's like we do have that dip. Our hormones change after. So it's so normal to feel that like insecurity or that lower everything come up after ovulation. So yeah, just like again coming back to, and that's why like the simplicity of a practice of like every morning, I just encourage the listeners, to just tune in with your body, your heart, your womb, check in with where she is in her cycle and like what's actually true. And what if you could bring the tenderness of post ovulation to that podcast episode? What if you could bring the low energy, the tiredness to the hangout with your friend or to the client call and like meet them, for example, meet your client in that like wise woman energy, right? What if you could really bring your oracle online if you were bleeding while you had a session or had work or, things to do externally? And yeah, it's a practice. Like I'm not gonna lie, it's a practice. It's really a practice.
Mm.
Yeah. I hope
Thank
that that answers like, does that touch on?
you.
I'm known
Yeah.
to just like, I'm like, I just follow threads around.
You followed them to really delicious places. I think you nailed it.
Thanks,
Thank
babe.
you for that invitation to, it goes right back to Rebel Rose. Like, how can you rebel on the feminine path? And one of the pieces actually that I really strongly have been speaking to, I've actually just been invited to do like a live talk on this in front of 2,000 women, is that soft girl era thing that's
I saw that
trending.
one of your podcast episodes.
Oh
Yeah. I
my
was like,
God.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I know you resonate because I saw you do a post also about the distortion of softness and surrender being feminine energy. That, like you mentioned earlier, one of your clients, and I see it in my clients and I see it in myself sometimes, of this trying to fit into the feminine energy for polarity,
yeah.
for magnetism, for even like manifestation, like, oh, if I just soften and receive, then everything will flow in. And it almost becomes this excuse of, I don't want to say laziness, because obviously softness is delicious. And like you said,
Mm.
discernment, truth, attunement. Yeah, give me those soft days. But
Yeah.
not every day. It's not like, oh, you have to be that as a woman every day. If you're ambitious or witchy or fierce, if you're full of rage one day, it doesn't mean that you're not feminine. It doesn't mean that your man or your lover or your woman is going to be less attracted to you because you have more fire that day and less softness. So I'd love to get your take on why finding our edge and like pushing a bit, maybe pushing isn't a great word, but being in
Mm.
discomfort and
Mm.
driving and yeah, why is that vital for us as women as well? Not just to be in that soft, gooey yumminess, but like, why is that kind of hardness also a really important flavor of us?
Mm. And I'll use the word like to lean into that edge, right? Like you were saying, push maybe isn't the right word. And like I'll say like to lean into that edge. And, I am all about like the grounded action and devotional discipline. Like I love to call it devotional discipline because like we're not just all soft all of the time. Like you were saying, the feminine is so multidimensional, so multifaceted. And yes, one of those many facets is soft, like softness and just that yumminess. I'm like, yes, give me that. Like I just want my whole life to be yummy and soft and delicious, right? Like I'm all for that. I'm all for that. But we can't we can't know the beauty and the pleasure of that softness if we also don't have the grit and the discipline that actually allows us to soften, right? I use the analogy, which maybe you've heard before, of like a river and the river banks. Like the river is the feminine, the river is she, and but the river can't flow. The river is just going to be literal chaos and going to be kind of a flood if she doesn't have the riverbed and the riverbanks to hold her, to contain her, And so I like to also think, when people say like, oh, I'm not good at structure, or I have so much resistance to structure, or, I'm sure you've heard those pieces, resistance to discipline. Like, yes, there's definitely deeper healing around like what have you been told discipline is? And for many of us growing up, being disciplined was being hit, was physical abuse, was being yelled at, was emotional abuse, was verbal abuse, was shut up and go in the corner and go to your room and be quiet. So there's those very real parts of our inner child that like need tending. And our woman needs to come along and be like, okay, we're going to rewrite this story of like what actually is discipline and what does discipline mean to us now and what do we want it to mean and how can it actually be like, for me at this point, like it's really sexy. I'm like, I, it turns me on. Like it's literally a turn on. And I think, like we come to that point where like, when you realize that it's like, oh my gosh, why have I been resisting this all my life? Like, this is so good. This actually allows me to really soften and to really rest. And I've found that it also allows you to like savor the softness more because you're not just like always swimming in it. We can end up just really swimming in the softness, which can also be like very airy fairy and off with the clouds and like very up here. And again, coming back to that, like we were incarnated to be here on earth, right? Like as human. And it's so beautiful to bring that deeper sense of grounding into just and like I always like to remember it, like I was saying, when people say, oh, I'm not good at structure and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you literally have structure within your body. Like feel your bones. Like I invite women to just take their hands and like, or anybody, people to take their hands and just press into your pelvic bones, press into your hip bones, and like feel how your bones are holding you. Your womb wouldn't be there if your pelvic bowl and your vulva, if your pelvic bowl and the bones of you weren't there holding her in place, right? Our heart, our lungs, like all of these structures within our body. You think you're not good at that or whatever. It's like, no, your body is literally made of it. Everywhere in nature, there's structure. Everywhere in nature, there's some type of system. And that doesn't mean that it's linear. I'm not saying that it's linear or it's like there's no straight lines, but there's a sense of organization. And there is that fine line where I think, like I said in that one post, where it can actually just like kind of turn into feminine collapse, which is like a big trauma response of just literally disassociating and collapsing from everything. And, that's where like we get to really strengthen like our backbone as women. And I also think about it as like strong spine, soft heart, open womb. That's something I always say, strong spine, sitting up tall, erect, having that posture within ourselves, but it makes space for an open heart, for a loving heart, for a generous heart, for a giving heart, and an open and soft womb and an open and soft belly. But like if our spine wasn't there straight and supporting us, we would literally just be like a puddle on the floor. And, and so yeah, it comes back to like just some deeper healing pieces around, what people have associated discipline with and structure with, and really just rewriting those stories. And like for me personally, it's been my relationship with God and the masculine that has supported me the most. And I just, to me, and from what I've seen in the hundreds of women, both friends, clients, my dear sister's clients, and beyond, like it's that relationship with the masculine at the end of the day. That's like coming into right relationship with that, which is like a whole big thing itself, obviously, um, can really allow us to actually truly soften, and yeah, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for speaking to that because I was gonna jump in and say the exact same story with me
Mm,
was that, yeah, and this is a huge part of my work with women and a big part of why my clients come to me. And I've done several programs on this, and I'll leave one in the show notes, which is called Believing in Good Men. But that
yeah.
is, yeah, that's the work that I did to invite that inner masculine, which I call my inner daddy, because like you said, it's sexy. It's a sexy piece structure, sexy structure. And as women, we're often like repelled by a lover who doesn't have that safe sense of like stability.
Mhm.
But can we use that as a mirror as women and be like, well, how's your safe sense of stability? Like if you
Mhm.
desire that in another, it's a reflection of also desiring it within in that inner union, and that inner union is so important to cultivate. In my personal experience, it has been and continues to be the work for me to cultivate the
Mhm.
trust between the inner masculine and the inner feminine between me, to know that I won't abandon myself, to know that she's safe, that she's held. And I love that you brought in that piece around our spine and our bones being the true, at any moment dropping into remembering that, just through like feeling the erectness of our spine in that moment as a reminder of like, oh, I've got myself. I've got me.
Mhm.
I'm holding the soft, squishy parts with this strong rootedness. I love that. So
Yeah.
thank you. So
Mm.
I'd love to get a personal story from you that you feel called to share about your personal descent into your truth and your womb. When
Mm.
a time that you might have felt to shed all of the external, all of the, complicated things, the stuff. And when you really dropped down and in and you realized, oh, this is my woman, this is my truth, this is me. I'd love to hear a
Mm.
personal kind of descent story.
Yeah, yummy. I love this question and this invitation. Ah. Hmm. I would say, the past few years have just been a continual journey of this. Like, there's been so many different moments and so many different pieces. And one of those really pivotal moments was actually probably, I'll actually speak about my breakup. Um, yeah, I didn't expect to share that, but that's what's coming through. Yeah, it was a separation from my former partner who, we thought we were going to get married. I thought he was my husband. I thought he was the father of my children, like all of the things, like my future, my life was going to be in Australia. That was the one timeline. That was not the timeline that God had in mind for me. So we embraced the change in direction. But it was really through that separation and again, like another crumbling in that I really, and we had been together for context for like about 4 years. And, he had really been with me through like my very boss babe era of my business and my very like, yeah, that kind of more maideny, beautiful version of myself, still very in my maiden, but like, yeah, a much more immature version of myself. And so our relationship really evolved through so many different evolutions of me, as all long-term relationships do. Like our partners are going to see so many facets of us. And through that, like deep grief and cracking open and letting go, like I really was able to see where I had him like on a pedestal still and where I was still I call it like a stronghold. Like that's more of like a term I've been working with over the past couple of years is like these strongholds in our life are basically a stronghold is anything that we turn to before we turn to God or, if that's the divine or source, whatever that is for you guys, like that greater power. Anything that we turn to before we turn to God has a stronghold on us. So if that's turning to Instagram, turning to a friend, turning to the astrology report, turning to book a session with a healer or something, if that's ChatGPT, if that's like where are we turning before we actually take a moment to like tune into the divine? And I realized that relationship, like there was a stronghold there where like I was always turning to him for everything, for all of these things before actually tuning into myself, before actually asking myself the question, before bringing it to prayer, to meditation, or, just being with it. And like, I realized, wow, I like, there's a lot of entanglement here still. And with that brought up like deeper grief around my abortion and just like, all of the pieces that I shared earlier. And that time like really forced me to spend more time with my womb, with God, with prayer, with just literally like me and my body and the divine. And like, it's interesting to say this, but like that experience is what truly softened me. Like that breakup, like I thought I was in my feminine and like, yeah, I was. And I was definitely like very much the feminine pole in our relationship. But like I didn't know, feminine until I really, like went through that deep crumbling of the relationship and breakup and like actually felt yeah, for me, it was like the love of God and being so held in that, like knowing that I'm so loved, I'm so chosen, I'm so held, I'm so perfect, that like I am a beloved daughter and I'm cherished and I'm adored, not by men or not by anything external, but like by literally the pure love of life. And that just like brought me to my knees in ways that like nothing else ever has. And that was now maybe like over like a year and a half ago now, I think. And, I realized like where I was still shape shifting my truth to fit his, and where I was shape shifting my desires to fit his and my beliefs to fit his, even like our spiritual beliefs, where like, it was kind of, I think for me, it was like maybe a deeper healing around men and just the masculine of like, oh, if he believed something, then it must be true. And like he's right. So like I'll just like leave what I think, at the side and just believe what he says. Yeah, that's like so vulnerable to share, but there was so much of that happening and I didn't realize how much I was outsourcing that it like really forced me to be like, oh my goodness, who am I without him? Who am I without identifying with this man? And to be honest, like I'm a very different woman than I actually was showing up as in that relationship. and there's a lot of different pieces to it, but like the woman I am now on the other side of it, like, bless that version of me and that relationship. And he's a good, good man. It's absolutely nothing to do with him. He's a beautiful, beautiful man that I still love, but yeah, I really met myself like on the other side of that and just who I am and how I carry myself, how I work, how I lead, how I stand, how I relate to my body, to my womb, to like everything shifted through that. Um, yeah.
Mm, thank you for sharing
Mm,
that vulnerable breakup piece.
mm,
And I definitely know in the past when my heart has been broken, I feel that when the heart rebuilds, there's so much more capacity for beauty and love and magic because we've gone to a deeper level of pain or we've gone to the depths of our grief. And so when we come back, there's this new wisdom, this new level of love, this new level of knowing, this new level of I'm a woman who just survived that grief and look at me now. And it builds a lot of self-trust and, like you said, connection with divine, connection with whatever's been holding us during that experience. And that's really powerful, so thank you for speaking to that. We're
mm,
going to start
mm.
to wrap up, so I always ask people this last question, which is like, what's your current edge? What's feeling triggering and sticky and challenging and hard for you right now?
Juicy question. My voice. My
Mm.
biggest journey right now is with my voice. I think it's one of my biggest life journeys as well and explorations, like womb and voice, as we know, are so connected. But definitely my vocal expression through, yes, through song and through sound and through really expanding the range of my voice and the expression of my voice, coming from someone who always thought, she couldn't like I had cysts on my vocal cords when I was younger. I was always told to shut up, to stop singing, to be quiet, that I couldn't sing. I got like embarrassed at choir when I was a little girl, just all of the little stories when we were younger. So this has been a really big reclamation recently. I mean, it's been for a while, but like right now, it's like I'm very in that and not even just my voice in terms of song and sounding and that expression, but the way I share my voice and communicate with friends, with you here, the way I show up on social media, the clarity of my voice, the precision of my voice, the practice of not giving my opinion unless someone asks for it. So there's also a practice of like listening and sometimes literally not saying anything, which for example, like something happened today where someone was saying something. I was just overhearing it and I was just like cringing, like, oh my gosh, is this what this person's just saying? And I was like, I'm like, okay, there's some judgment. I've got a big judgment shadow. I see you. But I was like, nobody asked for your opinion. You're not in the conversation. So, like, why are you even wasting energy on like entertaining this? You know? So, yeah, just different ways that my voice expresses herself is a big edge.
Mm. Thank you, love, for going to the edges with us
Mhm.
today. And thanks for bringing us to our edges of what we've been told, of what we think we know, and inviting us to go deeper beneath that and
Hmm.
into our deepest truth and the deepest truth of divine source, God. And thanks for bringing that message to us today. I'm so grateful we could make this happen. So, where can we come and find you? Where can we be with you and connect with you right now? Where would you like to send people into your amazing space? And I cannot recommend enough. Like, Gina is giving
Mm.
the most value. It's such a gift to be in your Telegram community. And just a reminder to everyone that Instagram could disappear tomorrow. So, like, we just don't know. It's a good idea to get in this woman's spaces in her communities. So, how can we find you and be with you right now?
You're the best. You're so sweet. You guys can, just like Charlotte so beautifully sold for you all, you can come in my community It's completely free, so it's just like a beautiful free space off of Instagram, off of social media. I'll have Charlotte, leave the link for that below. I share a lot of like audio transmissions, practices, written pieces, like free events, different things happen in there. It's a more like intimate space. And then on Instagram, you can find me at Rebel Rose Temple. That's probably where I am the most, that is where I am the most active as well. And I always love to have conversation. I love to hear from you guys. So if there's anything that you took away from the episode, or a question that you have, or a trigger, or something that's come up that you want to bring that maybe you want to talk more about, I'm so here for it. So yeah, just encouraging you guys to reach out.
Mm. Thank you so much, Gina. I'm going to leave all of your links in the show notes. Everyone go and connect with this beautiful woman. And thank you so much for being with us today, love, and sharing your truth and bringing us a new, very, very needed perspective into this amazing feminine community that we're in online. But a different voice is coming through you, and I feel it and I resonate so hard. So thank you for being you. Thank you for sharing yourself with us today. And yeah, so much love, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you, my love, and thank you everyone for listening.